What if I told you the darkness you felt in someone's presence wasn't just your imagination? What if the emotional chaos, the gaslighting, the manipulative charm that turned into cruelty wasn't just human behavior, but something far more sinister? There is a terrifying spiritual and psychological truth behind narcissism that most people are too afraid to confront. But today, we will. So stay with me, because this isn't just information, this is transformation. What most people don't realize is that your body is a profound instrument of intelligence. It stores information long after the mind has rationalized it away. And when you're in the presence of someone wearing a mask, something subtle but unmistakable starts to happen. Your nervous system flinches, your stomach tightens, your heart begins to beat differently. You can't explain it logically, but something deep within you starts whispering, "This isn't right." That feeling, that intuition, that resonance, it's the language of energy. It's your body detecting a misalignment between what is presented and what is truly being emitted. Narcissists are masters at performance. They've rehearsed their roles so well, you almost believe the script. They say the right words, mimic empathy, offer charm in all the right doses, but it's an imitation. It's emotional theater. And you can feel it because your inner world, your energetic self, can sense truth. And when that truth is absent, when you're face to face with someone who operates only from surface level manipulation, your body knows before your mind ever catches up. That's why in the beginning you may have doubted yourself. You may have said, maybe I'm overreacting or I'm being too sensitive. But that wasn't sensitivity, that was insight. See, we're vibrational beings living in a vibrational universe. Every thought, every intention carries a frequency. Love has a frequency, so does fear, so does manipulation. And when someone is wearing a mask trying to convince you they are one thing while secretly operating from a darker place, it creates a frequency mismatch. You felt that tension, the dissonance between words and energy. That's the crack where truth leaks in. That's the place where awakening begins. You weren't crazy, you were conscious. And this brings us to something most people aren't willing to admit, something that goes beyond psychology into the realm of the spiritual. Narcissism is more than a personality disorder. It's more than ego. At its core, it is a disconnection from self, and in that disconnection, there is a vacancy, an opening. And that opening can become inhabited, not metaphorically, energetically. When a person suppresses their inner world long enough, when they deny their conscience, override compassion, and live solely to control and consume, they become fertile ground for darker energies. Think about it, the cruelty, the coldness, the complete lack of remorse. It's not just about trauma or conditioning, though those play a role. It's about what moves in when the soul checks out. It's like a virus of the spirit. Narcissists are not just emotionally unavailable, they are spiritually detached. And in that detachment, something insidious can grow. It whispers lies to them and uses them to inflict harm on others, particularly on those who radiate light, because light threatens darkness. And your light, your kindness, your deep capacity to love, it disrupted their illusion. They didn't come into your life by accident. They were drawn to you because you represented something they lost touch with long ago: presence, purity, connection. You didn't trigger their love, you triggered their emptiness. And rather than rise to meet you, they tried to drag you into their void. They wanted to feed off your attention, your validation, your energy, because they couldn't generate their own. That's why they mirrored you in the beginning. They copied your essence like a parasite mimicking a host. But once the mask slipped, once your intuition broke through the fog, you began to see the truth. They were never connected to love. They were connected to control. This is where the transformation begins, not by blaming, but by recognizing. The moment you identify that something dark was operating behind their smile is the moment you reclaimed your clarity. Because once you understand that you weren't weak, you were targeted because you were strong, everything changes. There's a deeply uncomfortable truth that often hides in the corners of our relationships, and it's this: we attract not what we want, but what we believe we deserve and what we unconsciously resonate with. Now, This doesn't mean you consciously chose pain or abuse. It means that something in your emotional field, something unresolved, familiar, or unhealed, created a frequency that aligned with the experience of being unseen, unvalued, or manipulated. That doesn't make you guilty. It makes you human, and it also makes you powerful. Because once you see it, you can change it. Narcissists don't choose just anyone. They don't go after people who have no emotional depth or spiritual light. They gravitate toward those who radiate something they lack. People with compassion, with softness, with the ability to love deeply, to forgive easily, to give without needing to be asked. That level of emotional intelligence is a mirror and a threat. Because when you shine with authenticity, someone disconnected from their own soul will either rise to meet your light or try to extinguish it. And narcissists don't rise, but here's the beautiful hidden gift. If you attracted this experience, it's because you are strong enough to heal it, to break the cycle. You don't need to become harder. You don't need to shut down. You need to become more conscious. You need to see the pattern, not just in others, but in yourself. Where did you learn that love must be earned? Where did you decide that silence is safer than self-expression? What memory buried deep in your past convinced you that peace must be fought for instead of received? The subconscious mind is a powerful filter. It seeks out what it knows. If your earliest experiences of love were conditional, unpredictable, or painful, your nervous system wires that as normal. So when a narcissist enters your life, unpredictable, conditional, demanding, you may not recognize the danger immediately. Instead, your nervous system may recognize it as familiar, and familiarity to the subconscious feels like safety. But it's not safety, it's programming. And the moment you bring that programming to the surface, you create a choice. You shift from reacting to remembering, from surviving to creating. Narcissists are not just emotional abusers, they are energetic vampires. And their favorite fuel? Confusion, doubt, emotional chaos. They don't just hurt you, they train you to question your own perception of reality. You find yourself justifying their behavior, blaming yourself for their actions, minimizing the harm while amplifying the hope. And that's the trap. That's how they drain your life force, by keeping you in a loop of emotional contradiction. It's not love. It's addiction to potential. It's a trauma bond disguised as chemistry. You may have noticed that after being with them, you were tired all the time, not just physically, but spiritually. You stopped laughing the way you used to. Your dreams faded. Your thoughts became foggy. That's not accidental. That's the cost of entangling with someone who doesn't just want your attention. They want your energy. They want your essence. They want to take what they cannot create. But here's the truth your soul already knows. Energy doesn't lie. When something feels off, it is. When someone leaves you more depleted than empowered, pay attention. That is not love. That is consumption. And you are not here to be consumed. You are here to be whole, conscious, sovereign. Reclaiming your energy begins with awareness, recognizing the pattern, the exhaustion, the way you felt more like a shell than a self. And from that awareness, you stop trying to convince, to explain, to fix. You stop pouring into a void that never fills. You begin to turn inward, to nourish the parts of you that forgot they were sacred. Because when you remember who you are, not who they made you feel like, you become untouchable. You become energetically sovereign. You no longer beg for crumbs because you remember you were never meant to starve. There comes a moment, usually quiet, often painful, when you realize that the more you fight for their love, the more you abandon your own. It's a deep, soul-level awareness that what you've been calling connection is actually captivity. This realization doesn't scream, it whispers. It comes when you're sitting alone, drained from another circular conversation, another emotional ambush, and in that stillness, something awakens inside of you. It says, this is not who I am. You start to understand that healing isn't about fixing the narcissist. It's not about getting them to finally see your worth, admit their wrongs, or change their behavior. That's a distraction. Healing is about reclaiming the space they once occupied in your mind, your heart, your spirit. And to do that, you have to detach, not out of resentment, but out of reverence for your own energy. Detachment is not indifference. It's not apathy. It's the highest form of love you can give to yourself when someone else refuses to love you in a way that honors your truth. When you stop reacting, they lose power. When you stop explaining, defending, and proving, you interrupt the cycle. Because narcissists aren't interested in solutions, they're interested in control. And control requires your participation. So when you go quiet, not out of fear, but out of clarity, you send a new message to the universe. I no longer negotiate with what depletes me. This shift isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's energetic, and energy speaks volumes. In the beginning, detachment can feel cold, maybe even cruel, but that's just your old programming responding. That's the part of you that was trained to earn love by enduring pain. But love doesn't require you to abandon yourself. Love doesn't demand self-betrayal. Detachment is a boundary in action. It's saying, I see you, but I will no longer bleed to be seen. And the moment you choose that kind of clarity, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. Your thoughts begin to clear. You start to feel your own presence again. Boundaries are not for other people. They're for you. They are not ultimatums. They are declarations. Every time you draw a boundary, you're teaching your inner child that she is safe now, that she no longer has to prove her worth, jump through hoops, or tolerate confusion to feel loved. Boundaries are how you begin to rewire the story. You stop repeating the trauma and start creating a new pattern. One where your peace is prioritized, your time is protected, your body is respected, and your spirit is honored. When you set a boundary with someone who thrives on control, they will resist. They may accuse you of being selfish, cold, or dramatic, not because you are, but because your growth threatens their grip. That resistance is confirmation, not that you're wrong, but that you're no longer playing a role in their script. And it is in that moment of resistance that you must choose, collapse back into the old version of you or expand into who you were always meant to be. It takes courage to set boundaries, especially when your nervous system has been conditioned to seek safety in people who hurt you. But courage is a muscle. And every time you say no to chaos, you say yes to healing. Every time you protect your space, you reinforce your sacredness. Boundaries are not barriers to love. They are bridges to self-respect. And the more you practice them, the more your energy shifts. People who once drained you will fall away, not because you forced them out, but because your frequency no longer aligns with their dysfunction. This is the frequency of freedom. Not loud, not desperate, not dramatic. It's steady. It's grounded. It's the quiet knowing that you don't have to tolerate manipulation to feel connected. It's the soul's remembrance that love, in its purest form, never asks you to suffer to be seen. And when you live from that truth, your entire life begins to change. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped abandoning yourself. There is a moment in every healing journey when you stop trying to get back to who you were before the pain, and instead you start reaching for who you were always meant to become. That's when true transformation begins. Healing from narcissistic abuse is not about putting the pieces of your old self back together. It's about awakening to a completely new version of you, one that was never dependent on anyone else's approval to exist. It's about remembering that you were never broken, you were buried. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the wounds, beneath the lies you were made to believe about your worth. The pain you experienced wasn't punishment, it was an invitation, an initiation into a deeper relationship with yourself. You had to lose yourself in the illusion in order to remember your truth. And now that you've seen it, now that you've touched the raw edges of your soul, you can never go back to sleep. This is the sacred rebirth. This is what it feels like to come home to yourself. When we talk about healing, we're not talking about forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. We're talking about transmutation, taking the darkness that once consumed you and turning it into fuel for your awakening. Because what narcissistic abuse steals from you first is not your confidence or your clarity. It steals your connection to yourself. It fragments your reality. It convinces you that love is pain and that boundaries are selfish. But once you recognize the pattern, once you choose to stop participating in the script, you begin to write a new narrative, one where you are no longer the background character in your own life. That healing, it's not always loud. Sometimes it looks like sitting in silence and breathing yourself back into your body. Sometimes it's saying no not with anger, but with peace. Sometimes it's walking away from chaos without needing closure, because you finally realize that your clarity is closure. Healing is a return to the soul. It's choosing to live in truth, even when that truth is inconvenient. It's choosing to believe that you are enough, not because someone else says so, but because you feel it in your bones. And as you do this inner work, something miraculous happens. The very energy that once attracted pain begins to repel it. The very frequency that once drew in dysfunction now radiates boundaries, clarity, and deep self-respect. You no longer become a magnet for narcissists because you're no longer unconsciously seeking validation outside of yourself. You've become the source. And when you become the source, no one can take it from you. But make no mistake, this is a spiritual battle. Not a battle against people, but against the unconscious patterns, the inherited beliefs, the generational wounds that kept you trapped in cycles of scarcity, fear, and unworthiness. This is a war between your conditioned self and your awakened self. And neutrality is not an option. You must choose. You must decide again and again to align with light, with love, with liberation, even when it's uncomfortable, even when your old self begs for the familiar. You must choose growth over guilt, expansion over attachment, truth over illusion, because the light is not just something you find, it's something you become. And as you walk in that light, you don't just heal yourself, you shift the energy of every space you enter. You become a living transmission of permission for others to rise too. Your healing is not just personal, it's collective, it's cosmic, it's divine. And when you remember this, you stop fearing the dark. You stop chasing what hurt you. You stop shrinking to fit into places that can't hold your truth. Because now you know you are not here to survive the pain. You are here to alchemize it. You are not here to be consumed by others. You are here to illuminate the path for those still lost in the fog. You are the light you are waiting for. You are the truth they tried to make you forget. If this message stirred something deep within you, you are not alone. You are part of a rising force of women reclaiming their power, their energy, and their truth. Let's continue this powerful conversation in the comments. Have you experienced this energy drain? Have you felt that unseen darkness? Share your story. It could be the light someone else needs. And if this resonated, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who needs it today. Tell us, what truths do you want to explore next? What battles are you ready to win? Drop your thoughts below. We read every one. This isn't just a channel. This is a sanctuary for souls awakening. Welcome home.